Take the next right onto Shaftesbury Avenue, then turn right onto Burns Avenue. Take the next right onto Burns Avenue. In 300 yards, turn left onto Harlington Road West, A312. Take the next left onto Harlington Road West, A312. In half a mile, slide right onto Causeway, A312. Take the next right onto Causeway, A312. quarter of a mile, at Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit onto the Parkway, A312. Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway. Continue on the Parkway for 1 mile. In a quarter of a mile, at Cranford Parkway Interchange, take the second exit onto the M4 slip road to Heathrow Airport, M25. Exit the roundabout onto the slip road. In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4. quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
GPs, it's worse than the phone calls and referral letters. He says there's been a drop in training GPs and practice nurses. I do wonder, it's an interesting point, are some of the problems that we are pointing to and blaming and attributing to COVID, are they part of a bigger issue? Is the bigger issue that there aren't enough GPs now?
Keep right to stay on M4.
For GPs, are we blaming the GPs themselves when actually they're doing their best under very, very difficult circumstances?
Continue on M4 for 2 miles.
Massively overworked in the middle of a pandemic. More of your calls on this coming up. We're also going to be asking questions about a different part of health policy. Why aren't Premier League footballers getting vaccinated? We're going to be hearing about that in just a moment. That's coming up after the news, which at 6:33 comes from Tim Humphrey.
The Pentagon says it's not received any orders to stop dealing with US citizens at Kabul airport. Earlier it was reported that the US embassy was telling citizens to avoid travelling to the airport, where there have been several deaths today. It's emerged Britain's Minister for Afghanistan was on holiday when Kabul fell to the Taliban last Sunday. The Foreign Office says Lord Ahmad of Wimbledon has, however, been working closely with Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab and engaging with international partners. 6 people have been arrested following a brawl at a seaside theme park. A man and 2 police officers were assaulted at Adventure Island in Southend in Essex yesterday afternoon. The weather, heavy rain or showers becoming restricted to parts of northern and eastern England this evening. Mist and low cloud in the north and east, a low of 10.
This is LBC. Sarah Jack could smell something fishy.
Oh, that'll be the clam chowder, our soup of the day.
She was being set up,
Yeah, I know.
and she needed to find out why.
Well, BT set me up. Their experts just came in and installed the Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah, give me something to work with here, Sarah. Cut the drama with BT's expert setup service. So it's all business, no drama. Search BT Business to find out more. BT, beyond limits.
This week I'll mostly be gardening, hiking, dining, driving, crafting, working, gaming, cinema going, sourdough masterclassing, and okay, some sleeping. I'm 62, and life's busy when you get to my age.
At Boots Opticians, we know what living in your 60s really looks like, and that you need glasses that can keep up. Our stylish signature range does exactly that. So book your appointment today at bootsopticians.com and find your perfect pair. Boots Signature. Eyewear for living. Appointments subject to availability.
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
Let's face it, lockdown left many of us carrying some extra pounds. But now's the time to turn things around. To shop smarter, eat better, and move more. Small changes can make all the difference. And getting started is easy.
Keep right to stay on M4.
Support to lose weight. Download the free NHS Weight Loss app. Better health. Let's do this.
There's something big going on at Tesco. Big brands at small prices. Not just hundreds of Tesco products price matched with Aldi, but lots of big brands too. So you can do a big shop and save yourself a trip. Tesco. Every little helps. Prices checked to match on hundreds of comparable products from GB Aldi stores and online twice weekly. Prices matched
Exit at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Somebody else says it's not even possible to meet face to face. You have to initially go to the nurse whose experience and advice is highly questionable. Lots of you talking about negative experiences. Tracy says, good evening there, listening to this with incredulity. It's becoming impossible to contact the GP, evidenced by my son, who this week needed to speak to someone at his surgery. He had a telephone appointment, hope it never happened, no one rang, he rang again. Bring you back, they said, no one rang. Guaranteed return calls, ha ha. Lots of you in these experiences. Of course things do go wrong. There are calls that are missed, calls that are missed. But when it becomes a trend, as from your messages it seems to be, then we do have to, don't we, look at the systems that are in place, look at this virtual way of having appointments and ask whether it's really working. But someone else texted in, and the fact is there's not enough GPs being trained in this country. We've known about this problem for years. Primary care budgets haven't kept up with the aging population. Easy to blame individual doctors rather than the fact that funding isn't there. I suspect there's something in that, but it's GPs who are getting the blame as individuals for what could be, perhaps more legal, at least partly, but more systemic. I'm going to get to your calls list in just a moment because there are quite a few of them. Firstly, I want to get a take on footballers, not just footballers in general, but footballers when it comes to COVID vaccinations. The back pages of pretty much every national newspaper today full of Premier League managers talking with some concern, it must be said, about the fact that many of their players, most of their players in some clubs, don't want to get vaccinated against COVID-19.
In a quarter of a mile at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
So let's speak to Professor Ellis Cashmore, Professor of Sociology at Aston University, who has studied footballers in all sorts of ways extensively. Professor, thank you for joining us. What could this be down to?
Well, it could be down to a number of things.
Exit at junction 6. In a quarter of a mile at the roundabout, take the third exit onto Tuns Lane, A355.
Now, I know there are lots of conspiracy theorists, some of them most of them are harebrained, but I suppose at the end of the day, if a footballer came to me and said, provide me with evidence about the long-term effects of whatever vaccinations are available on the market over the next 10 years, I couldn't provide that evidence.
Exit the roundabout onto Tuns Lane.
It strikes me, given what you've just said about the importance of footballers' bodies, that the long-term effects of getting COVID, that they would want to go all out to protect themselves against getting infected. We've heard, haven't we?
Continue on A355 for 1 mile.
Who missed weeks, if not months, of the season because they had long COVID.
I know, and you and I would think that that would be the rational decision-making process that would lead them to a vaccination, but obviously it isn't at the moment. Same with the NFL players in the United States, you know, they're also resisting. So, and these are professional athletes. One of the things they're doing is making a kind of cost-benefit calculation in their own minds and saying, well, if we abide by the COVID protocols at the club, I think that they're being tested at least twice a week, and sticking to the rules, they can get away with it. And who knows, they might be able to. So we can't mandate like they're trying to in the United States at the moment and say you must, this is an obligation, you must be vaccinated. So as long as we retain that freedom of choice, I think that we have to say that our footballers are at liberty to resist taking a vaccination as long as they abide by the other protocols.
Professor, just finally, what would you say to those who say our footballers are incredibly wealthy?
Continue for 1.5 miles.
Spoiled, selfish. These are some of the stereotypes people have of professional footballers. And what would you say?
Stereotypes, then.
That's my question. What would you say to those who look at this and say, just another example of entitled footballers not doing what the rest of us doing, not doing their bit?
Half of human beings who are in possession of whatever facts we have available. They engage with the media, they know what's going on, and they're entitled to take care of their bodies in whatever way they think appropriate.
Okay, Professor, thank you for joining us. That is Professor Ellis Cashmore of Sociology at Aston University. I'm sure this is something we will come back to. Why aren't our footballers getting vaccinated in the numbers that the rest of us are? Interesting question. We will come back to it. For now, though, we are talking about GPs. We're talking about your experiences of the NHS during and after the pandemic. I had one text from a doctor who doesn't want to be named, who says, I really don't think we should be blaming individual doctors. They are working so hard. Yes, the system does definitely have its problems, but we also have to remember that there's a terrible pandemic. And they say if these people who are struggling to get appointments lived outside the UK, they would be paying lots of money to see a doctor. That's true. But, of course, this is in the context of the NHS where people are used to getting an appointment and we pay our taxes to not have to pay to see a GP. Let's bring in Georgina in Watford. Evening, Georgina, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
What would you like to say on this?
So in the beginning of March this year, my dad started experiencing some chest pain and back pain unexplained. And so the first instance we called the doctors to say, look, to get an appointment for him. The doctors spoke to him over the phone and prescribed antibiotics and prescribed some painkillers. Not really knowing what was actually wrong with him, but
he had chest pains and they prescribed antibiotics.
Pains in his chest, in his back, and but just didn't know what it was. It was really like unexplained, kind of came about in an unexpected way. But yeah, so first off, just antibiotics and painkillers, but it made no difference to him. So called back again, prescribed even more painkillers, stronger painkillers for the pain, because he was at the point where he couldn't kind of sit up without being in pain and things like that. But still wasn't offered a face